Right, fantastic morning again this morning. Beautiful sunshine in Gauteng, as you can see. So lovely day to talk about change once again. So yeah, as a business partner of mine and an old friend often used to say is nothing keeps on changing. So the question is, what is changing and what are you changing in your life? So Lee, yeah, let's hear about changes. We were just talking about them before we went onto record. So yeah, over to you.
Well, thanks, Ivan, and hi, everyone. Nice to see you this morning. So what fascinates me, so what happened is I did some work with some collaboration with the lady who ended up becoming a friend of mine, and that's just how it works. So Maureen Collins, a very experienced facilitator, and she did a lot of work around straight talk, so having crucial conversations. And from that had picked up Kerry Patterson and Joseph Grenny's work on crucial conversations. So anybody who's been in corporate, usually you've done something around crucial conversations. And then they went on, they're social behaviorists, and their work is all research-based. And they went on to do further work in behavior change. So, and they were the original ones that came up with this grid of what does it take to change behavior. It's personal, which is about your will, your motivation, and your knowledge, information. So you've got to want it and you've got to know how to do it. And then there's the social aspect. You've got to have people who hold you to account, and you've got to have people who support you. And then what they had underestimated and hadn't realized, and it was a real aha moment for both Maureen and I, is how influential the environment is that even if you want something, even if you, yeah, thanks, Ivan. So even if you, and even if you know how to do it and you've got the right people, that your environment can in fact still trip you up, or you can create an environment that enables that behavior that you want. And one of the, in the Chip and Dan Heath book called Switch, which is similar information, they tell the story of research done with people watching movie. And what they did is that they gave 3 different lots of audiences different size popcorn. So small popcorn, medium popcorn, and big popcorn. And it was awful. So they deliberately made it old and tasteless. And so there was nothing wonderful about the popcorn. And then they asked them after the movie, how was the movie? Not realizing that the actual research was how much popcorn had people eaten. And it was directly proportional to the size of the bucket. It didn't matter that the popcorn was awful. If it was a small amount of popcorn, a medium or a large, the larger the bucket of popcorn, the more they ate. And it was just an indication that that if it's there, you're going to eat it. And so that was what, when Edward yesterday spoke about my wife bought a new kettle and Donovan said my wife hid the toaster, it just reminded me that our environment, if we change something in our environment, we automatically change the behavior without all this mental processing of got to do this and I've got to change this, I've got to think about this, I've got to discipline myself. That sometimes it's just one simple thing. So there are a couple of things that I thought, well, what do I do? So that one of the simplest things I do in my life is I love licorice all sorts. I don't know, go figure. So I don't buy them. If they're in my house, I will eat them. So that is one thing that I do to protect myself from eating gallons of of licorice, all sorts, is I don't buy them. And then one of the things that my husband and I have been promising ourselves for months, if not years, is we must recycle. You know, we keep telling ourselves, you know, we should recycle. And it wasn't until we bought bins and we said, okay, this is the paper bin, this is the plastic bin, this is the tin bin, this is the glass bin, and they are in reach, that we started recycling. Now it's not even everybody who comes to our house. It's so funny. It doesn't matter if they're a new person, an old person, you know, they'll have a plastic bag and say, oh, what do I do with this? They don't automatically put it in the rubbish bin. Then they can see the recycling bins and they know it has to go somewhere. So those are two simple examples from my life of how we've created an environment to ensure the behavior that we want. So I'm fascinated to find out from all of you guys, what are some of the things that you do in your environment that ensures that you do what you want to do, or you've seen maybe not even in your personal life, but maybe in social environments or around you, what people have done, what companies have done to encourage a behavior that doesn't involve finger wagging or rewards and all the rest of those things.
Right, so who's up next? Do some finger wagging here. Right, Ed, you're looking very pensive there. Let's get across to you.
Yeah, when Lee mentioned this one yesterday, I kind of struggled to think of anything. And then when she mentioned that popcorn, I got really worried because I've just ordered 5 tubs of ice cream to be delivered. And I love ice cream, so perhaps I should have just ordered one. But I've got 2 examples, one from business. When I used to sell stuff to sports shops, we had one brand where we were just an agent, we weren't the distributor, and they set a minimum order level for shots. And we said that that was a deterrent. And they said, well, no, we have to have this minimum order level because if they order a small quantity, the shipping costs outweigh the profit. And I kept saying, they will never order a small quantity. All you're doing is saying that they've got a peg on the display with no sock. It was socks. So Lee will enjoy this because I think she likes socks, don't you, Lee? Yeah. You've got an empty peg because they run out of small size. They won't order until they've run out of the medium size to get the minimum order. But if you just cancel the minimum order size, they will order, and every single order will be bigger than the minimum. Because when they're ordering, they think, oh, I'm out of small, I'm soon going to be out of medium, I might as well buy loads. Eventually, after 2 years, we got the company to change policy. Sales actually rocketed. And not one single order was below the previous minimum. And I think it was just that behavioural change of moving that barrier allowed people to buy. And then on a personal level, at a certain age, my children started using language, not inappropriate language. I think the sound might be going, because I'm getting a message with internet's unstable. But they started using things like well, good, and all those sort of expressions. And if I told them not to do it, it had no effect whatsoever. So I started doing it, and they said, Dad, that's not very cool. I said, well, I just hear it everywhere. I can't stop myself. I said, can you help me? I said, if I use that language, you tell me, and I'll pay a fine. So every time I said, well, good, or whatever the latest phrase was, they fined me 50p. But of course, what they didn't realise was I was stopping them from doing it, because they never said it after that. So that was kind of changing from a telling them off environment to actually making them the policeman. And that worked a treat. They never used those words afterwards. And with all the money that I put in the swear in the naughty box, we used to go out for a meal every so often. So those are my two examples. I hope they make sense.
Great, thanks, Ed. Yeah, a little bit of reverse psychology to start the morning off with. So great. I like those. I like those ways of doing things. So, Master, let's get across to you next.
I thought you will save me some minutes because I've just arrived. I had a little hiccup. Can you please pass by a bit and I'll join now.
Okay, I was just trying to
get the feel of what's happening.
I was just trying to enforce some behavior change here. So yeah, you got to be on time.
Thanks for that.
Right, Stella, let's come across to you.
Morning, everyone. This is so weird that I wasn't there yesterday, so I didn't really prepare for today, so I didn't know what you were talking about. And so yesterday, one of the reasons why I didn't attend is I had to really re-look at my life and what I'm doing, what is working for me, and adapt some changes. So this is so good. Yes, so I've spent some time yesterday looking at what I'm doing, what is not working, why is it not working, what do I need to change? And one of the biggest things that that I realized is that, and it's a very simple thing, and don't laugh at me, is to make sure that I stick to a program every day. I want to, I've decided I'm going to break my my goals up and then every day allot time. And because sometimes you end up, every time there's a message on LinkedIn or Facebook, then you go in there and it just distracts yourself. So I want to set certain times. Okay, so Facebook, I'm only going to do this time. Facebook specifically for my business, and LinkedIn, and then decide on a Sunday what my well, I'm going to do my long-term goals. And Jasper, I know we had this talk before, and I've been just, to be honest, I've been plotting along and it's not working. So I've made that conscious decision yesterday, and Master and I also had a talk, and we're going to be our accountability partners. I've set up a meeting. Master, please accept the meeting on a Monday. And we're going to look at our goals and what we set out for us for the week. And because I really need to change. What I'm doing at the moment is not working. So I'm very grateful this morning that this is the topic. So it's sure, it's just another confirmation. Nothing happens by chance, eh? And also another small change is where Lee talked about the popcorn. It was so funny because just yesterday, one of the decisions I've made to lose some weight is to eat from a smaller plate. So that's a small thing, but I think it's going to pay off. So watch the space. Over in a month's time, you should see a little bit less of me. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Stella. Yeah, I think it's always good to review where you're doing and what you're doing and why you're doing it and how you're doing it. So I think those are all very positive things. So well done. All right, Kevin, let's get across to you next.
Morning, everyone. So apologies for missing the last 2 mornings. I've been had a couple of good nights on the old oxygen for the last 2 nights. I actually just didn't wake up in time to get on with you. So it's a good thing in some ways, but there you go. What's I've done to change? A difficult one. Like Ed said, I didn't really know what to come back to you with. So I looked at the business side, and in our business in the last, well, just over a month ago, we recruited a guy to the team. He's actually in the UK, but he's from South Africa, as it happens. And he's had a network in another company with 12,500 people in 12 months. And so he's a good guy to learn from, and he's been tweaking things for us, and we've been accepting the little changes that he's been making, and it's been making a massive difference. It's been doing things that work in the right location where you are, as opposed to expecting the US way of doing it to work over with us in the UK. Just little things like, instead of just instantly sharing a video, trying to get people on a Zoom call on a one-to-one basis. And yeah, the plan's working. So there's just little sort of changes, and we're going to start booming again. We're starting to grow considerably.
Great. It's amazing sometimes how just some small tweaks can make big differences, isn't it? So yeah, it's always good. So Jesper, let's get across to you next.
Morning. I was prompted by Edward's example of a minimum order size and how by removing it, it actually increased total orders. And I was reminded of a similar thing that I found in the insurance world. Most medical schemes come out once a year to then give you a prescriptive rule to say, for this year, you can have only 5 doctor's visits, and you can spend so much on dentist, etc., etc. Another company came out, and one of the first things they did was to say you can have unlimited doctor's visits. And just by scrapping that minimum 5, they found that in the other schemes, people who had that insurance make sure that when they get to the end of the year and say, oh shucks, I haven't used my 5 yet, they would then make a plan to go and at least have value for their money. Where the people who have that peace of mind that I can have unlimited visits only go to the doctor when they were really sick. And on average, it ended up a small portion of the normal doctor's visit. So it's often, you know, if one can just understand the psychology behind behavior, and I think we all found it as parents and grandparents. If you tell a child, don't, you can't, you know, then you make it the big thing in their minds, and then they try and test that thing. Yeah, and then Stella also prompted me about, you know, when you're in that space where you have to get momentum going, you have to create energy. And I was there many years ago, and often get there again. But my mentor at that stage gave me some very plain, simple, practical advice. And he just said, listen, you can't control people and you can't control results. The only thing you can control is your actions and your attitude. And then he prompted me to start getting, you know, my daily activities planned. And if I make sure that the activities that I plan has the potential of carrying results, like reaching out to people, making new contacts, sending out mails, stuff like that, positive actions, eventually the results will come. But I can only control the positive action. So I will stop there for today.
Thanks, Jesper. Yeah, and you tell me that now after all these years, and I've been trying to control Trevor without any success. You know, if you'd only told me that 20 years ago, it would have been a great help in my life. Just joking. Right, Master, let's get across to
you. Thanks. Yeah, you know, the result of me being, I must just confess, of being late today was a behavioral change that I had started, and I quickly went back to it. Now, for all these days, for a better part of the week, I would only switch my phone after I had had my wisdoms. So for some funny reasons this morning, my phone was on when I woke up, and I was totally distracted. You know, some messages that look so important. I mean, all this, I mean, for the past 4 days, every little message that was on, whether it's on my WhatsApp or any other platform, I would neglect it. I would not open up my phone so that I'm here on time. I'm ready. Even my psyche is ready for wisdoms. But just that little off ramp of switching on my phone earlier than before I came here, it just messed up my day. So yeah, those little behavioral changes that you make such a huge difference. And yeah, I think I'll keep and stick to me switching on the phone just after 8:30.
Excellent idea. I hope everybody takes that to heart this morning. So let's go. And Cecile, you're one of the big culprits, so we're going to come across to you next.
Yeah, but my Zoom I'm watching on my phone, so the phone is on, but I don't switch it on to anything except for I go onto the Zoom. But you know, when your Zoom is on your phone, sometimes the messages will come in between, and then I will just kind of flip them away. So yeah, so sorry. So that's just my excuse. Lee, interestingly enough, we also started. I also want to recycle properly. So I've been meticulously always putting my paper stuff to the side and whatever. And then I found one day that my domestic, she chucks everything anyway into the bin and put it all together. And even now during lockdown, I see with my husband, because at our recycling place, there's a thing for plastics. So I would put the plastics to the side as well, and then I see Sven puts them all together. So about a week ago, I now put there's the bin for normal stuff and a thing for plastics. So that's working, but I think I'm going to buy a second bin and actually label it plastics. That's the one thing. The behavioral change that I made long time ago is I was playing squash in the squash change room once, and one of my friends, she's got this most beautiful arms. And I said, yes, Anne, what do you do? Now she does push-ups and sit-ups every day. So besides the normal exercise that I do, every single night before I get into bed, doesn't matter whether it's 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, I will drop down on the floor in front of my bed and I will do 23, don't ask me why 23 push-ups and 123 sit-ups. It doesn't matter whether I'm home, whether I'm visiting, whether I'm on holiday, what type of floor it is, I will do that every single night before I get into bed. And it actually does make an amazing difference to what your arms look like. I mean, my arms don't look like a 60-year-old arms. They look like someone on the beach. Someone would stop me and say, do you do bodybuilding? And I don't do bodybuilding, but it's just what your arms look like. That's the one thing. And then the one thing that we decided, I had to move because they're chopping down a tree in front of us right here, and it's very noisy. That the one thing that my husband and I are going to be starting to do tomorrow. We have a we belong to a network marketing company, which we've been doing kind of on the side, on the sideline. But there is fantastic changes to the network marketing company. So we are now going to have exactly what Jasper said. We're going to have daily things that we are going to be doing. And we're not going to go to bed before we've done those daily things. And boy, if I'm this disciplinarian, I'm going to be not going to bed before I've done those daily things. So Sven doesn't know it, but he's in for the high jumps. He said, let's do it together. So because before we were doing it separately, but now we're going to do it together. So watch this space.
Thanks, Cecile, and I have no doubt that you will do it because that's exactly who you are. the do it lady. Right, Donovan, let's get across to you next.
Morning, everyone. Contribution is very simple. When I was up overspending for shopping, so the change I made using a drop-in basket. So that is how I spend. It actually worked. Yeah, that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thanks, Donovan. Right, Solomon, let's come to you next.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm sorry I've been very, very scarce. I had a bit of eye infection in the last 1.5 weeks. So I hope my eyes are not red. Ivan, I'm not sure exactly what we're talking about, but I think with what I've heard, I think for me, one of the things that I actually have been doing, almost like that kept me to be alive and to do well and to succeed. And you know, at a certain time I used to run, which I don't do that much because I've got a problem with my feet. But right now the consistent thing that I'm doing is to, on a daily basis, just come to my keyboard and you know, not keyboard but piano, and just play. And initially I just play and just play and just play the keyboard, and then eventually then I start singing. And I think what that does is during that moment it helps me to really reflect and think about different kinds of things. How do I do them, etc., etc. But one of the victories, I mean, I think it's a testimony that I also wanted to share with you guys, is when I started working for this company that I'm working with. I really was struggling a lot relationally because everybody was speaking Afrikaans and I couldn't fit in, I couldn't understand and stuff like that. And as a result, yeah, I mean, I wasn't really doing well in the beginning. And I really started changing my own attitude, and I started listening to some Afrikaans stuff, and and that helped me quite a bit now, because I've got probably 15 or 16 people that left the company, even though they seem to be the one that can be trusted. So right now, everybody's sending a lot of people for me to train now. So now people are speaking a little bit better now. They're not speaking Afrikaans only. So for me, you know, I just think I'm always challenging my attitude in terms of trying to respond better when things are not necessarily going the way I think they should. Yeah.
Dis baie goed, Solomon, wel gedaan. All right, Steve, let's get across to you next.
Ivan, I think you're booked up next to go to some Afrikaans lessons with Solomon. One of the things that I've found frustrating over the lockdown period specifically, I think the work from home and live at home kind of thing, is that I tend to get quite lost in my desk, and I do not prioritize the time that I want to set aside either on a daily basis or a weekly basis to read and to make sure that I'm consuming things, important stuff, not just, well, Facebook, for example, and definitely not just digital stuff, not just reading off a screen and that sort of thing. And so one of the little environmental changes that I did was I put a chair next to my desk. So I have a chair in front of my desk where I do kind of online work. And I have something right next to me that speaks to me and says, you know, this is also a spot where you can come and sit and you don't have a screen in front of you. And I've got a little pile of books, whatever I'm chewing through at the time, that I put there. And so that's been a helpful environmental change that just stimulates a little bit of change in behavior. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes it sits there and accuses me that I haven't sat in it for a while. And other times it's just a fantastic place to be. So those little things I do find help. And that's just a recent example.
Great, thanks, Stephen. What's wrong with my Afrikaans?
Ja, niks fout nie, man. Is alles reg. Moenie worry.
Baie dankie. All right, Trevor, let's get across to you.
As Cecile says, it is meticulous. What does that word mean? How does an Afrikaans girl from Bloemfontein get a word like meticulous? Anyway, right, so what can I contribute to behavioral change? I don't know the subject at all, but if I think back to the mid-1980s, I took on a defunct educational franchise called Academy of Learning, and there were a bunch of franchisees that had a terrible attitude and one or two that were absolutely great at what they were doing. And I wasn't in any mood to actually waste time. So what I did is I started feeding them with information and pictures and just started talking to them about where the industry was going, but I was feeding pictures that I wanted them to actually integrate into ideas that they would feed back to me. And within 90 days, the franchisees that I began working with were the ones that came back and said, listen, we've got great ideas. Their ideas came back individually, but they were a collection of the ideas that they had gathered from the information that was being sent to them. About another 18 months later, I sold that operation out into a listed company with 42 franchise operations, taking it from a defunct business to a highly profitable business, gathering 80,000 students in that 18-month period. And I came away from that with a saying in my mind, and that is, as a franchisor, if you want things to happen, you've got to allow franchisees to come up with the ideas that you want them to come up with. How manipulative is that, Stephen? Okay, but if you want to stimulate change, you've actually got to provide them with the information that allows them to come up with the idea and feed it back to you. And I think the add-on to that, I once saw a comment somewhere that trying to change an individual is take a piece of string about that long, put it down on the floor, and your challenge is to get that piece of string to follow you. So you can go to either side. You can go the one side and try and push it, or you can go the other side and try and pull it. So I'll leave it to you to come up with the idea of which is the most effective way to get that string to move in the direction you want it to go.
Great, thanks, Trevor. That's where I've been going wrong all these years, trying to push that piece of string across the carpet. All right, great, folks. Yeah, thanks for that. I think on my side, it's been a very interesting discussion. I mean, I've made a couple of very small behavioral changes over the last almost a year now, I suppose. Just from an interesting perspective from health, I've done quite a bit of reading around different things that influence health and well-being, and they're two very simple things. The one is breathing, which Kevin knows very well about, and getting your breathing right. And there's some very simple things that can make quite a dramatic difference there that I've started trying to focus on and do. And the other is to take a cold shower. So I've been doing that every morning, and even on the weekends, occasionally spending a bit of time in the swimming pool with a bit of cold immersion, which is apparently also good for the immune system. So those are just some of the small things that I've been working on for the last little while, and it'd be interesting to see how it pans out. So yeah, that's me. So Lee, back to you. What's on the agenda for tomorrow?
There is no accounting for some craziness.
Makes a lot more sense to me than running 250 miles, but yeah.
Well, I have had a conversation. I've primed Master. So on Monday, Master, I hope you're there. We had a little conversation, and so I'm hoping that you would be open and willing to share your story with us on Monday. You see?
Is it yes? No?
No? Do you need more time? I can't hear you, Master. Sorry, you muted.
The story is going to be fantastic. He's already got us on the edge of our seats.
No. Yeah, some little more time. Not that much.
A little bit more time.
Master, Master, can I send Master some pictures? I want to influence your story, Master.
Okay, so thanks, Master. We'll definitely give you some time. So let's talk about this influence. We talked about behavior change, and that was primarily around ourselves, and obviously it does influence others as well. But let's pick up on this thing of influence on Monday. Are there ways of influencing others? Is it manipulative? And does it matter if it is or if it isn't? So are there, so let's talk about influence, however you want to take it. What does it mean? What does it take? I'd really love us just to dig a little bit deeper around that word and what does it mean in our lives. So thanks everybody, have a great weekend. And yes, if I could influence you in any way, I would suggest take some time off. And I would not recommend cold showers, but I believe they help your immune system.
Try push-ups and sit-ups.
Those just make you tired. So that's fantastic. Have a good one. Don't want to influence you in any way, but have a great weekend. Go well. We'll see you Monday morning. Cheers now.
Bye.